All right, guys. We're getting started. I am over caffeinated, and I feel it. I shouldn't have been well, good stuff, guys. We're gonna get started here. Pretty good, Dexter?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
Next weekend.
So she's gonna, Kelly, our great server, is here to kind of keep coming in through here. So if you need anything, she's gonna keep serving while we're talking. She just knows kind of to be a little bit discreet, you know. So, and obviously, look, we record these meetings. Basically 2 out of the 4 meetings each month get recorded. We've been starting to record this one now that we have a restaurant with a sidewall. We used to get where they didn't have one, yeah. Amy knows.
Crazy.
Where the Hispanic, the Mexican restaurant took down the wall, so we're like, that's not going to work, so we found another place. With that being said, guys, I'm Courtney Fricky. A lot of you guys, I see some new faces. Good seeing you guys. So we do these meetings 4 times a month. This is the Lunch and Learn in Slidell. We've got the one that's in Covington. That's at, that one's at nighttime. That's our main meeting. A few nights ago, we were in Hammond. I got a text from a handful of y'all because of the traffic. I understand. Bob was there. Cole, we did the cash flow game night. That's all that was a great one. But we do these meetings. They're free to attend. Obviously, this one we do at restaurants too. We do ask you to order something to offset. This is somewhere we meet. But all the other meetings, there's no cost to you. These meetings are free to attend. We do have sponsors, local sponsors. Bob being one of them. Bob Norton, a real estate specific CPA. Most of us come in and we're like, hey, Bob. Madeline does accounting for him, like the bookkeeping for him. So we're all joining in. We're like, hey, we got this for you, this for this. And so a lot of these meetings, it's funny because a lot of us are, they're real estate specific. So we're like, hey, getting paperwork to them, this, that, and the other. So other ones, we've got Florida Law and Title. They are a investor-friendly closing title company. They also do the civil side of stuff. Ask me how I know. I feel like I keep their civil department all extremely busy. And what I mean by civil is, we both have closings today. We'll talk about that here in a second. Different closings that don't have to do with, that has nothing to do with either of us, but together. But one of my closings, I've been under contract for, I think, since October on it. And it's because we've been heavy on the civil side, going through a succession, because one of the owners had died. But then one of the heirs is 100% autistic, so they can't make a financial decision for themselves. So we had to go petition the courts for a long time, to get a curator, set up and all that stuff. So we use that civil department. Now that they have the ownership part settled out, now I'm buying this property at a great deal. Okay. With that being said, Florida Law and Title, they know how to do wholesale deals, they know how to do creative deals, they know how to do your normal deals, right? The other one we have is property management. Steve and Nick Leonard, they're actually, a lot of times they'll come to these meetings, so they're with Pelican Realty, Property Management, South Shore, Northshore as well, but they own properties themselves, so property management, I know that helps.
That is mine.
Yeah. So Steve and I are both, I have some that I self-manage, but I like most of my stuff being managed by other people. With that being said, look, I'm excited you guys are here. Today we're going to talk about a topic that's really important. Honestly, I believe there's probably 2 big skill sets. You guys have heard me talk about this recently, which is in order to be a successful investor, 2 skill sets that really matter. One of them, it is management, right? Management of your money, the budget of the rehab, management of your tenants and the property, right? Because failure to manage then turns into we're going to talk about the types of deals that we can buy, right? So management is important, but the second thing that's really important is it's acquisitions, it's deal finding, deal structuring, all of these things. And so many people come to me and they say, Courtney, I can't, I want to invest, but I can't ever find deals. A lot of people have said, so the last 2 years, right now, the market's been cooling. We were talking about that a second ago, right? What were we seeing? At the end of the day, the market has been cooling, but for the last 2 years, it's been really hot, right? Everyone knows that it's been a really hot market. Who here has found a great deal in the last 2 years? Okay, so the reality is people say, hey, I had so many people sit on the sidelines the last 2 years saying there's just no good deals out there. I just sold one of my rentals 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was a deal that I bought. We bought it in 2020. You guys remember? Really hot time in the market. I bought that deal though in 3 days from when I met the owner. But I had to buy it in 3 days in order to get such a great deal. So we're gonna, literally, it was like all parties involved, talking to my attorney at 11 o'clock at night, and saying, hey, all hands on deck on this one, buddy. See you on Friday, type of thing. So with that being said, I've got Steve here. Steve's a really good friend of mine. A lot of you guys, I want to let Steve introduce himself here real quick, but we're going to talk about ways to find great deals, and it can happen in any market, but again, it's a skill set that matters. So Steve, I know at a certain point I'm going to have to let you go here because you're not going to be able to stay for the full time because you've got a closing.
I do.
All right, can you tell us how you found that deal?
So that particular deal, I have no idea. And that's because I have a little bit of an operation. So I know the story, the seller, I don't know.
Okay, well, but let's get 30,000 feet. It's an off-market deal. Did you buy it through an agent?
No, it's definitely off-market deal, direct to seller. They would have contacted us, I don't know through what channel. They spoke to my acquisition specialist, Arione, who found out about the story, and it was an inherited property. They were still going through succession.
Okay.
So that.
I mean, some sort. So it's off. So, but first of all, Steve's built a business. So if you guys don't know Steve Keegery, he's based out of South Shore. We've done some deals over. We've done a good amount of deals together over here. And Steve, his background in the business world has been marketing. And a lot of people have heard about wholesaling and things like that, but the reality here is Steve is fantastic on the marketing side, and that is where he finds a ton of deals, is through setting up marketing. The reality today is we could go deep dive talking about marketing, and maybe we'll talk just some general thoughts on that. But Steve, you're also a buyer yourself, right? You do flips, you do buy and hold, Airbnb.
I do all those. I mean, mainly my bread and butter is buy and hold rentals. I like the Burr method, buying cash, fixing up, putting a tenant, refinance that money. That's really my bread and butter. I do have Airbnb, which I fell into. I do some flips sometimes. I'm not massive on flips, because I wholesale as well. So for me, I prefer to wholesale instead of flipping. It's the same sort of income, it's earned income. And it's easier for me because my skills are marketing and sales. So I'm tapping into my skills. And I generally keep the ones that are going to be too big a rehab that I can keep as a rental. So the one I'm closing on today, I am wholesaling it. Funnily enough, I own one in that street. I love that area. I was tempted to keep it myself, but it was just a little bit of a higher price point. Didn't work as much as a Burr, just because the rent relative to the price, it's not that great. So I decided to wholesale it instead. So I signed it to a different buyer who's going to close on it, and again, the assignment fee from that one.
So your strategy is, so you're still marketing and you're finding deals, but it's like you're cherry picking the best ones for yourself, the ones that make sense for your business plans, your investing plans, and then you're doing different strategies for the others. But the reality is you're still finding deals. Yes. And there's buyers out there that are dependent on people like you because you wholesale deals. They're dependent on you to find their next deal because they don't know how to find their own deals.
Yeah.
Okay. So I myself as a buyer, I buy from 3 sources. I buy from wholesalers. So I have a closing today at 3 o'clock for a property. Where's the property you're talking about?
It's in Reo.
So the property that I'm buying today is in Abita Springs, here on the Northshore. And that one, I'm buying it from a wholesaler. So it's kind of as if I would be the one buying from Steve, right? But it's not Steve. Give me a deal, Steve. Yeah, I'm on it. But long story short, though, it's, that is a deal that I'm buying, and I'm going to do a light rehab to it, and then I'm going to resell it. The reality, and I actually was going to keep it as a rental, but because we were under contract for so long, I actually took a longer time to think through it. I said, no, I think I'm not keep it as a rental. I also got to see how the HOA responded over time. And I was like, I'm not going to keep it as a real. And, you know, but I buy from three sources. Buy from wholesalers, right? A lot of people say, oh, well, what value do wholesalers bring? It's a significant amount of value in my life because I've gotten great deals. I bought a package of 31 properties that included a mobile home park, a laundromat, some single family homes, some land from a wholesaler last year. I bought land, I've bought trailers, I've bought houses from wholesalers. So, and I come from an approach of whether they know how to structure the deal or not. Like that big package, they were like, look, I said, hey, I'll walk you through the process. I know, hey, I'll walk you through the process and I'll make sure you get paid, type of thing, right? But I don't mind working with them. Some buyers, if you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with wholesalers, and wholesalers are people who simply get properties under contract, like what Steve was talking about, and then they assign that contract, sell that position in that contract to another investor for a profit. But they don't have to close on it themselves. They can just sell that contract, right? And so they're making money selling their position in that deal, finding that deal and selling that position in that deal. So some investors are like, oh, there's no value in that, or they're just getting in the way, or that look, you've bought some great deals from wholesalers.
I bought some wholesalers too, yep.
So we're going to talk through, let's start off by talking through, there's three ways we're going to talk through finding deals, three different types of methods. The first one is going to go through wholesalers. What are your thoughts on buying from wholesalers, and how does one even go about finding those wholesalers?
Wholesalers generally pretty easy to find. Like if you go on the different Facebook groups for areas, like they're looking for buyers, like you're looking for each other, because a wholesaler needs buyers and buyers need wholesalers. So generally, if you're going on the Facebook groups,
let's talk through some. What's the Facebook group? So first of all, Steve should get the reward because he drove the furthest today. Because if you can tell from his accent, so Steve, obviously Steve lives in the area. He is our token Aussie, but he's on the South Shore. Okay. If you guys haven't heard, so him and Emil Hurst, they run the West Bank Real Estate Investor Meetup. You want to share about the Facebook group that y'all have for that?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook group, West Bank Real Estate Investors. It's a good group, community. On Facebook, you can ask questions. You'll find buyers there if you have deals, particularly on the West Bank. People buy outside of West Bank too, but West Bank particularly, if you go there, you'll find buyers of deals in the West Bank.
Yeah. Or other South Shore deals and stuff like that. So we've got a Facebook group. It's the Southeast Louisiana Real Estate Investor Group. If you go to Courtney10k.com, that's Courtney, the number 10, the letter k.com. It has on there the Facebook groups. So the Southeast Louisiana one, I think we have like almost 3,000 people in that group. I know for a fact people have bought deals from that because they've sent me a selfie at the closing saying, hey, I saw this guy post a deal in that group and I bought it today. And I was like, cool, I had no idea, otherwise I wouldn't know, right? So first of all, you can go find wholesalers in that. But I want to speak to the mindset part of, like, being a buyer that's open to buying from wholesalers, right?
Yeah, the way I look at wholesaling too is it's just a function. It's sales and marketing. So wholesaling isn't really investing. Like it's a process of finding deals, which I guess is the topic of this conversation. So I am an investor. I buy properties. But I separate myself. My wholesaling isn't investing. It's a marketing sales thing where I'm generating leads, creating deals, and then selling that contract and positioning that contract to another buyer. So I would look at wholesalers as your marketing department or a marketing campaign. Probably not your department because you don't want to rely on one wholesaler, but it's just a marketing campaign you have that you can draw in to get deals from. And when dealing with wholesalers, lots of wholesalers, it's true, don't get the numbers right. But you can still do deals with a wholesaler that's new. I just think if you're going to buy a wholesaler, you need to be responsible for the number. Don't take their A or B at face value. Yeah. Don't buy it because they said X and Y. You should do your own homework. Just like you buy an on-market. Don't trust their numbers. But even if their numbers are wrong, they can have a good deal. You can still buy a deal off them if it works. Just make sure you're comfortable with title return. Because one thing is if a wholesaler will assign they're assigning their contract to you. So you are then becoming responsible for the terms in that contract. So it is important that you read that contract because you are taking their position. So if there's something in that contract that you don't like, then you do not want to sign that deal.
For example, a lot of investors say, hey, I got this contract off the, internet from somewhere. First of all, if I see county written all over it, I'm like, oh my God, sorry. Right, that's like the first easy way to start saying. And look, guys, this is why that title company that you work with, look, call up Florida Lee, they'll give you paperwork, right? Like I've worked with Florida Lee on all my creative financing paperwork to give to them so that they can then supply people with that documentation, right? Because a lot of people, they say, like, well, I don't know. How do I have a purchase agreement with the seller? I don't know. Like, but here's the thing is okay, well, what if you have a duplex or maybe a fourplex that you get on a contract? It's got tenants all in it. But what if the contract that you downloaded says must be delivered vacant at closing because it's for a normal one like just a single family house, one unit. And then all of a sudden the landlord reads it and says, starts sending notices to the tenants to leave. You're like, wait, that would bring in value, right? So these things matter. So, but here's the thing is, a lot of people shy away from wholesalers because they say, their numbers are not realistic. Or, this, that, and another. I come from the approach of, hey, I'm a willing buyer. I can help you. When those 31 properties, it was actually 30, when those 30, because I found the additional owner for the one, when those 30 were brought to me, they were like, why did I bush? They're like, I don't even know what's a good price for something like this. I was like, let's work, I can work together and I'll build you in where you get, I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me, right? But, so first of all, there's that mindset of being open to it. And you definitely need to check those numbers, especially in this market, because today's prices are not what yesterday's prices were. And I had a wholesaler yesterday in my DMs with one, actually on Del Chase. We were talking about this because we've got a property on Del Chase that we're buying and that they're buying, and that it's like, okay, it was right near there. And I said, I know these comps very well. I was just looking at them. And they were comparing those comps for this house that was boarded up and vacant. Of the comps they sent, one of them was a new construction. And then the other two were from in the beginning, January and February of this year. Are the prices from January and February the same prices today? No. And so I said, hey, talk about this. Does a seller have a problem that you're solving? Because if they don't have a problem, and we'll jump into this more, and that you're solving, and this is a matter of just, it's just an offer that was put out there, okay, that's one thing, right? But the reality here is, if the wholesaler has a seller that needs help, I'll say, let's go on the appointment together. I'll help you get this deal done. And that's what I want to encourage buyers to do, right? Help them reverse engineer the deal so you can get a deal, right? Mm-hmm. Now, wholesalers, if someone's helping you through the deal, don't bite their hand, though. You know what I mean? Meaning, one of the fees, so with wholesale deals, and this goes for buyers and wholesalers, there's 3 numbers that matter. So the first one is the after repair value, right? That's what's this house going to be worth fixed up. That's a hard number to track down today, right? Because it is a moving number, all right? And that's one of those numbers. Again, I just mentioned how they were comparing this boarded up house to a new construction. I don't care how much I fix this house, it's not going to compare to that, right? The second number that matters is the estimated repair cost. Yes, 100 different buyers are going to have 100 different budgets, but the matter still remains that no house has a 0 budget for repairs, right? A $0 budget. There's always going to be something that needs to be done. The question becomes, one of the big things there is that estimated repair budget is how you're going to get your, in its current condition. Yes, I know what it would be worth fixed up. In its current condition, what do I have to do to get it there, right? Because if it's going to take $50,000 to get it to be worth $100,000, I can't buy it at $50,000, right? I might as well just today go buy the house for $100,000 next door, right?
Right.
So that estimated repair cost, and then Steve, I'm gonna have you talk on this here, but that in a second. All those three points, those 3 data points. But that third one is your wholesale fee. My very first assignment deal, I made $7,500 on a house in Short Street, right by you, over here in Slidell. A few blocks from where I used to live here in Slidell. And I was just so, I only called one buyer who I knew was, trying to flip a lot that year. And the deal worked out. I made $7,500 on, it was actually on Good Friday when it closed, I think in 2017 or 2018. And I remember I was like, this wholesaling thing, I've been flipping, and so I was like, this wholesale thing works. And I'm like, it's a Good Friday. And then the bank wasn't open after that. And so I all weekend I was like, so I remember that being like, it won't be a good day. So long story short though, look, I mean, I just closed off, I don't wholesale as much, but I just did a $30,000 assignment fee on a deal in Marrero a few weeks ago. I did, those so there's, you can make 1,000, you can make, there's some different values there, but here's the thing is, if the deal can't support that 30,000, you're not gonna be able to, right? So what are your thoughts on those three data points? And speaking to this, as far as, especially in the buyer side of things, how should they view those 3 data points and working with wholesalers?
Well, I think when working with wholesalers, they should consider it as guidance, right? And you should really underwrite your own deals. Look, I think when I don't send out repair costs. When I'm doing a wholesale deal, my ARVs are generally pretty accurate, and I'll go conservative if I don't know. But I always check it, because don't trust them. I'm not, you need to underwrite your own deal. Just like if you're buying on market, right? The seller's asking a certain price. Doesn't mean the house is worth that. You know what I mean? You need to make your own decisions.
So the market has to support it.
Yeah, and so I never actually send out a repair cost. I always calculate one, so I always have one. So I underwrite the deal myself. I will not send out a deal if I don't think it's a deal, and I will have a repair cost, and I've done my price factoring in. But I never share it because it's different for everyone. Like Courtney says, right? I just think if I send a repair cost, I'm wrong 100% of the time. And what I mean by that is, sometimes for some people it's too low, and for some people it's too high. Because just everyone's different. Everyone has different finishes. I'm not, and I deal with big boys and girls on my buyers. They're cash buyers. They're smart people. They know what the cost is. So I don't. I definitely figure it out. Don't get me wrong. I have an estimate, but I'm not giving that out because their estimate's gonna be different. And then assignment fee. That's really just based on what you can get it for. I've actually done the $0 assignment fee.
Same here.
So I've done the $0 one. I just had one where it was an early one. I messed up some of the numbers, but I still closed the deal. Because why wouldn't I? Right? I didn't make any money, but I said to my seller, I'll get it closed. Got it closed. I had a buyer. I got a buyer who was happy. They did a deal, and I've done more deals since. So I've done 0. So I mean, it really just depends on the price you get it.
So one of the things when it comes to buyers, a lot of buyers get caught up on the assignment fee. Well, how much are you making? I literally had someone from someone the other day called me and said, hey Courtney, they were looking at, I was helping them with a multifamily deal, and then the idea of assigning a multifamily deal, a larger multifamily deal to some buyers, and they were adding buyers to their list. So they were marketing to sellers, and if the seller didn't want to sell, they were saying, oh, well, would you want to buy some more multifamily, right? To add them to their list, their buyers list. And so they were explaining to them that they're, if there's some they might wholesale, that if they find this deal where they don't take it down themselves. And long story short, the seller said, well, what's your cap on how much you make, because what's your fee gonna be, type of thing. Long story short, one of the biggest things I always kind of go at it with is saying, hey, let's just say the deal is at $100,000 and it is a deal for you, right? At the end of the day, the question becomes, if I had it under contract at $1 and was assigning it to you for 100, would it still be a deal for you, right? The reality there is, so a lot of times I've had buyers, because as investors, a lot of us are frugal, we're deal makers. I've had, because I used to wholesale a lot more. Probably less than 20% of the deals I do now are wholesale and flip deals, but I used to do a lot. And I have some investors who's like, they just have to get a deal. Like do you do this at Walmart with the you know what I mean? I'm like sitting here, and it's a long story short, I had to start getting this basically policy that said the only thing I'm going to be reasonable, and I've adjusted price before when I was wrong, or when the market was telling me it couldn't support it. But I also knew when to stand my ground when the market could support it, right? So long story, because recently with the some of the larger assignment fees, I had people come in and say, hey, no, I'll do this, but I was like, no, and I'm glad I knew that the market could support it because other ones came out, right? Long story short, though, I've learned to take the policy that the only thing you're negotiating, when I know that the market can support it, the only thing you're negotiating is whether I call you on the next deal or not. Right? So as a buyer, you want to keep that in mind. You don't want to bite the hand that feeds you.
That's a really good point, and because if you are watching the assignment fee, like
you're counting other people's pockets.
You as a me, you're off my list. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't need to work with you. Like if you care about what I make, you should care about what the deal supports. Like I said, big boys and girls sellers, they can figure out the price and if it's going to make money. And if it makes money, you shouldn't care what I'm getting paid. Look, I don't get these massive deals while I'm making big deals, but like if you care, I will cut you off my list. And just take that, like if you have a deal that works for you, like, and you see that a wholesaler makes a bunch, don't make a deal out of it. Congratulate them, because that person won't come back to you. Like congratulate them, and they'll come back. They'll bring you more deals, and you get some big ones, you get some little ones, and like don't count their.
Yeah, wholesalers aren't making 30,000 on every deal.
It's a deal or it's not a deal. Feel free to make an offer, but don't make an offer if you think that the deal doesn't support the number. By all means, make a lower offer to the wholesaler, but don't make it because you're like, oh, I think you're making this, so I'm trying to take, that's the point.
And that's that mindset where, that mindset is not going to get you far in this industry if you're counting other people's pockets. So we're going to go on talking about being direct to seller in a bit, but I want to make sure I get any final thoughts from you on working with wholesalers. Because, look, the reality here, if you're looking at buying wholesalers, every time I see a We Buy Houses sign, I have almost wrecked my truck turning around to go, and literally in my phone, it will say black and yellow, We Buy Houses sign as the name, until I can replace it with who it is, But I will call it and save it, because I'm like, have I called that one yet? But you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, hey, and I kid you not, when I first got started, I thought that all the We Buy Houses people worked together, because it all said the same thing. So I called them and I say, hey, I'm a local cash buyer. What do you have? I'm looking to buy, right? I'm introducing myself to them. Facebook groups, meetings like this. So real quick, any wholesalers in the room? So obviously you're one. Every now and then I do. So looks like just the three of us. All right. So with that being said, we can support you with all of your deal needs. Thank you for today. We're done. No, but the reality here is at the end of the day, I like dealing with wholesalers. And at the end of the day, yes, there's a lot of wholesalers who get their numbers wrong. Yes, there's wholesalers who, there's some level that you have to understand the game to navigate it, right? You have to make sure they're direct to seller. Because if they're not direct to seller, you can lose the deal. What do I mean by that? Let's say Johnny has a contract with direct to the seller, but he's struggling to find a buyer. It's a very common practice to say, well, let me go find Susie who has buyers, and Susie's another wholesaler who will bring the buyer for that deal. There's some technical ways they have to do that. But if Susie just gets under contract to buy from them, and then now you're buying from Susie, like when there's too many chains in that link, I've been burned before and so now, as a buyer, what I do is I say, are you direct to seller? If they're not, I'm like, you need to be as direct to seller as possible, otherwise the deal control may not be there. So what do I mean by that? For example, if they're not direct to seller and something happens with the seller, you don't know. You think you're moving along doing this deal and spending money to move this deal along to close it. So those are some things. And then here's the thing is I like to vet the wholesalers I'm working with. But I'm okay if it's their first deal. But if you're not used to buying with wholesalers, let me say these other little tips, and then we're going to go direct to seller. We're going to talk about buying direct to seller. When working with wholesalers, understand it is not like buying on MLS. Buying on MLS, you get it, you make an offer, you get under contract, then you start inspecting it, right? When you buy from wholesalers, it's like buying at the auction. When you make an offer, be prepared to close. All your inspections, due diligence, running your numbers, checking should be up front. Most people struggle with that if they're only passing history has been buying through the MLS. So I say treat it like you're buying at the auction, not like you're buying through an agent. Because most wholesalers are taught to operate from that inspections and due diligence are done before we go into contract. Because so generally your earnest money is going to be non-refundable, meaning the only reason it gets refunded is if title can't transfer for some reason. Ask me how I know, and ask me how many earnest monies I've kept. When people are like, hey, I'm like, okay. I'm like, look here, and I'm that person where I'm like, I vet people and whatnot, but like, I'm like, look, and I tell them up front, but then some people are like, oh, well, I thought I had, no, what part of due diligence up front, non-refundable, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the important point, and I think it's just the difference, like, when you're buying from a wholesaler, I think I like what you said, that think of it like an auction, but you're getting a better price. And those are the terms of it. The price is, and me as a whole, like, the price is negotiated because we're offering all cash, quick close, you know, no inspections, like, that is how the deal is secured. And if you want that deal, you need to go with those terms. And that's not for everyone too, like, if
you're buying with a loan,
not everyone can do that.
Loans, you can't buy wholesale deals, like, and that's a hard part, because that's another thing is when you're buying from wholesalers, you've got to meet their criteria, as long as it's reasonable, right? I've had wholesalers before ask for the moon, but then they won't show the property, and I say, okay, tell me why, because there's been a few occasions where they couldn't. They say, oh, because they just think they will run their numbers. I'm like, and they will buy the deal without walking in. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. But the rare occasion, if the deal demands I can't walk it, then I want a greater discount. So one of the things you have to meet their requirements, a big part of that is their timeline to close. And then they're going to often want to look at, how are you buying it? Are you buying with cash? Are you buying it with a loan that takes 45 days? Like those things are going to matter with your ability to buy from wholesalers. And anything else as far as like meeting their criteria that you need to think about?
Not criteria, but I might just give some tips on working with wholesalers as well. Like a lot of, like, if they're a good wholesaler who are doing deals, like, make friends with them.
Yeah.
Let them know what you like, because a lot of deals, like, I sell a lot of deals I don't send out to my buyers list. Like,
real quick, how can people get on your buyers list?
You can email me, steve@homebuyerlouisiana.com, and I'll add your email to my buyers list. So steve@homebuyerlouisiana.com. But I'll a lot of deals I won't send out, right? There's different reasons. Some deals, it's just things are different, right? And I have people I know, and I know what you want, and I know you're a good buyer.
And you build a relationship.
Often you just get that phone call, you know what I mean? And so if you have a wholesaler that's good, like, chat to them. Like, let them know, when I know, oh, hey, you really like this deal, like, I get this deal, I'm like, and I might just be that
This
call.
is a so-and-so, that's a Courtney deal, this is a whatever.
And that often happens, so just, and also just in general tips, like when they send you deals, like, maybe you're not into that deal, reply and just tell them, give them feedback. It's just a little tip that I find, like
I like that neighborhood,
I
but
appreciate
I
it,
don't want to pull a gun in that neighborhood.
yeah, you're like, thanks, yeah, I'm more looking for a higher end flip, but now, again, now, me as a wholesaler, I clock you, I'm like, okay,
I'll think about you for the
I'm
next
starting to
one.
understand you more, and so that's my little tip, just, if they're wholesalers that are actually doing deals, like, regularly, just chat, don't be shy.
And there's wholesalers, like Steve's one of them, they have a legitimate business out of this, right? They're doing, like, it's a legitimate business, okay? So, big point there, don't write them off. And then, you want to make sure you're going at it. So with that being said, don't be transactional, be relational. This business, you don't do well if all you're doing is taking deposits from, taking withdrawals from that ATM, right? It eventually runs dry and in the negative, and then you get in trouble. So one of those things there is you want to just make sure. So let's talk about going direct to seller. So one of the big things there is we talked about, wholesalers who are marketing to go direct to seller, and then people just skip that process and buy from wholesalers who don't want to do all that marketing. But there are people who are saying, hey, I have not found, maybe the wholesalers aren't doing enough deals for me I need to buy more, I want to go direct to seller myself, or whatever. What are your tips for that? What does that process look like?
First, this one thing, you spoke about 3 ways, right? You can find deals off market from a wholesaler.
So we're going to go over 3. So we're talking about buying from wholesalers, buying direct from seller, and buying on market or through agents. Those are going to be the 3 main ways we're talking about.
I want to like just pick on a nuance on that. You actually don't find deals off market. You Just go home now. You will not find a deal off market. You will find leads off market, but you create deals off market, right? And that is the difference, right? Like you can find leads from wholesalers because if it's a good deal, they've presented it to you and it's ready to go. You can find deals with a realtor on MLS, which you get into, and the deals are there for you. And off market direct sell lead, you find leads. There's definitely you find leads, but those leads need to be worked and the deal needs to be created. So you really, I would just say you create
Absolutely.
the off market leads.
1000%. So, as far as working direct to seller, first of all, I don't think that direct to seller, it either can be something done in volume, but it can also be done in one-off. I will say this, I'm not saying it's the only one that's profitable, but it can be some of the most profitable because there's the most flexibility because it is a two-party, negotiation. There's not, the wholesaler now getting paid or, commissions being paid or this, that, and the other. And it's now, direct negotiation. So it can be very, very, profitable for everyone involved in that sense. But with that being said, in order for you to get a lot off market, you have to get in front of a lot of sellers. It's like, kissing a lot of frogs before you find a prince type of concept. To the point that I used to be spending like $7,500 a month, and I had 7 people on my team, back to when I was doing a ton of off-market direct-to-seller marketing. I have gray hair sections in my hair I can point to that was that season of life, stress-wise and whatnot. And I got away from that. I did not want to chase that game of just volume. My phone still hasn't recovered from getting, all those, all of those messages, nice and not nice. Just because it's a marketing game. So if you're wanting to go direct to seller, understand, especially if you want to do a lot of it, understand you're getting into more of the sales and marketing role to where literally his team goes through sales training frequently, right? He's constantly going through marketing, re-looking at his marketing strategies. So understand, a lot of people love the idea of it, but keep in mind, I remember I met some nurses a while back who spent $4,000 on a whole bunch of mail being sent to sellers. And then they worked 12-hour shifts and then they came home to their kids, but then they had 25 voicemails that were waiting on them to respond. And they're like, we don't have time for this. And we spent all that money. So that's my leading word of caution is understand what your budget is, understand what your availability is, and also understand your personality type, right? If being on the phone or door knocking stresses you out, try a different marketing channel, right? Maybe buy a billboard. Well, I don't know, or whatever, right? Go to your, because I do have some people who don't get me wrong, so with that being said, any tips on just some recommended marketing styles? Yeah,
and I'll piggyback and get into those tips, but also your goals, right? So if you want to go direct to seller, you probably want to do volume as a flipper. You probably want to do some wholesaling, so you can because you're going to be generating lots of leads and you need the business to support that. So if you only want to do a few flips a year, get with the wholesalers, get with the agents, find them those other ways would be my recommendation because it's a role to do the marketing. Probably the exception could be there is some simpler techniques that you might use, lots of people will do driving for dollars, if you've heard of that, where they're driving neighborhoods looking for rundown houses, and that can be a good list that identifies, that's that lead, that's finding an off-market lead that you can then contact, you can skip trace them, you give them a phone call, you can send them a text message, you can send them a mail piece, so lots of people will do that, and if on a small scale, if you're even a small flipper, maybe you bought a house and you're doing a flip in a certain area, maybe you work going in that area, right? Because you're there working, seeing other houses, and maybe you do want to go down and skip trace them. And that wouldn't be a big campaign, but yeah, make a couple phone calls.
So if someone skip trace, what websites do you recommend for skip trace?
I use Lead Sherpa personally. There is a bunch. There's Batch, people talk about a lot. I use Lead Sherpa. I find them very accurate.
So Lead Sherpa for that skip tracing. What skip tracing is finding out someone's phone number. If you have their name and whatnot, there's some of that data you have to have up front but it can find phone numbers for them.
And you normally go to the assessor's site. So if you go to
The
the
tax
tax assessor, you will find the address, and it will generally tell you the owner, and it will tell you their mailing address, and it's that information that you just request. If you have the owner's name, their mailing address,
And
property
the
address, then that's really information you need to get a pretty accurate skip trace.
Yeah.
You generally get some phone
And
numbers.
Lead Sherpa, I think Lead Sherpa can do one-offs
Yes.
for skip tracing. Some of them, they like make you have to do like 100 minimum or
I
something.
think it's like 12 cents, 12,
Yeah.
15 cents a record.
How do you spell the last part?
Sherpa,
Sure.
SHERPA. I'll translate it.
Oh,
Aussie.
yeah.
So I like look at my strategy. Like even if you're not doing a lot, like yeah, you probably want to do it around the area of anything
Right.
you have you doing, and you maybe a local area and on that small scale, and then just get it, and then you can have a marketing machine, or you can just do these tasks.
The
But, like,
one-offs. I have moved to the one-offs, where, I do a different motion. I'll share more about it, because I know I'm gonna be focused on getting him on the road to his closing. My closing's at 3, so I have a little more time. His is at 2 in the city. But one of the things here is that when you're going, Drive for Dollars, if you go to Courtney10k.com, with the REIA, we actually have a promotion with the Deal Machine app. Any of you guys heard of Deal Machine? Him and I were talking about it. Deal Machine is an app. Any of you guys use it? You guys done a deal through it? I've definitely gotten sellers through it. So, Deal Machine app. So, Drive for Dollars, I used to write down the address, and I'd write down tarp on the roof, or boarded up, or like grass is 10 foot tall, or fire damage, or whatever, right? To jog my memory. What you can actually do is, it is a subscription, so you do have to pay. But what they have, the promotion is they'll give you 15 deal credits with Deal Machine. What you can do is, through Deal Machine, you can drop a pin on the property, so the property address part, right? But you can either then, with that credit, you can either skip trace it through them, or you can send them a postcard right there and take a photo of the property right now and send it to them. If they're living out of state, who knows the last time they saw it? Or, whatever. I mean, heck, they could go live in South Shore and it'd be, or the North Shore, it'd be on the South Shore. Who knows the last time they went and saw it, right? I kid you not, I've actually done this before, taken a selfie of myself, being like, hey, I'm a local house buyer down the street, curious what your plans are, and if you'd be open to an offer. Like something as simple as that, and I'll have people call me. So with that Deal Machine part, it just automates it. The other part of it, I don't care if you use that. Write it down, but if you write it down, go to the tax assessor's website and then get in front of the seller. I don't care if you have 3,000 addresses of properties you drove by. If you don't call them, you're not getting anywhere, right? And that's most people's biggest problem is they do all the data collection, but none of the sales part, which is in front of people, right? So, for example, every time I have an appointment, I go drive around. I drove around an appointment that I had the other day, and I found a for sale by owner. The sign was written with a pen. I had to get out of my truck to go read what looked like, well, it ended up, let me just say this, it ended up being a home phone, a landline. So, and on top of that, the grass was growing high, all this stuff. It looked like they had a failed attempt at an eviction of trash to the curb, and that's what it was. We're now negotiating a creative finance deal on that deal. But at the end of the day, if all they put out is that sign, it's going to depend on who drives by to see it, right? That one, though, ready to sell. Okay, so one of the best things when dealing with sellers is there needs to be a pain point. I tell them all the time, if there is not a reason for me to be here, if there's not a problem that I'm solving, I shouldn't be here. Don't sell to someone. Because I need a discount. I was talking about this earlier. With the mega millions, I know it's over $1 billion now, but the other day it was at 810 million. That 810, that's a pre-tax number, was what you'd win over time. But the cash offer was 470 million, right? Nearly half.
Yeah, it's too small.
I know. Look, and everyone's like saying, even after Uncle Sam takes his 50%, I could do something with, I don't know, 235 million.
I've already figured out what.
Okay, I have used that Mega Millions example. So if you guys follow me on Instagram and social, I shared the video talking about that. But I'm a creative real estate investor, so I talked about people you can make more over time, right? But I've used that with almost every seller appointment that I've had in the last 2 weeks that it's been in the news, because what am I talking about is I'm preparing them that cash is not as much. And actually, I'm like, man, this one was like half. I'm sowing those seeds because it's, hey, look, as a creative real estate investor, you know, I'm also teeing them up. But here's the other thing is, if they don't have a problem, the reality is, to list with an agent, industry standard is 6%.
Yeah.
I need more than a 6% discount, and I literally tell them that exact same. I said, honey, if all you're trying to do is save real estate commissions from retail, I'm more expensive than 6%.
Yeah.
And unless you'll give me time. If you give me time, I can pay you more. So with that being said, talk to me about how you find your problems and the hard stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's that is the point about creating the deal, right? It's the understanding. So you find that property, you've got overgrown grass in the area, boarded up. You know, you skip trace them, you maybe text them or give them a call, or you send a letter and they call you. Like, now you need to talk. You know, and that's not about making an offer. It's not about, hey, I want to buy your house. It's actually, it's finding out how you thought about selling. I'm buying in the area. You know, and they're like, yeah, okay. Then you want to find out what the story is, you know. Yes, you want to ask them about the house, like is the beds and bathrooms, and like that's, you need to know that, but that's not what's important. You know what I mean? And that, I would normally start with that because it's they're most complicated. Well, they're most complicated to talk to because the guard's up when you first speak, but then once that conversation is flowing, the truth is like what's more important is like why are you selling? Like why would you consider selling? Like, you know, what are you moving or why is it abandoned? Like, oh yeah, do you have tenants? Like, it's that the story is actually what's important, you know. And so my acquisition specialist, like, yeah, we do sales training. It's not really sales, it's more it's listening. Like it's hearing, it's conversating, it's building rapport, and that's how you create the deal. Because once you know what's going on, then you can structure a solution. You know, because you know what they want. Like, do they need cash now to move somewhere? So therefore they need a cash offer. Are they just looking to sell because they're in retirement and therefore maybe a creative offer where you're paying them over time is actually going to be better for them? So it's really about those problems. So that's what I mean by creating the deal. And you just need to be a good conversationalist. And actually not a good, my background is sales, but it's not really sales, to be honest. This isn't sales, it's people. It's talking, it's listening, hearing, like what's going on.
One of our best deals we've done together was from one statement I heard that seller saying. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm like, did you hear that? Because we're walking with this other walking these properties. Did you hear that? So the reality here, so first of all, you want to give away one of these because I know you need to head out.
I do need to head out.
Alright, so, and I'm going to give out 4 books. We give out books every meeting. We're not done yet.
I will need to go.
He's going to need to go. Real quick, final thoughts on direct to seller. I'm going to continue sharing some thoughts, so I get him on the road for this closing. Final thoughts on direct to seller. Any tips?
I mean, just all those things: listening, make an offer, but then I think just follow up, right? So deals can happen real fast. 3 days you mentioned, but some of them happen over time, right? So
the majority happen over time.
yeah, and people are often, believe it or not, unrealistic about what their house is worth. You know, so you can't imagine that. So you know they often have an opinion, right? But the market will speak. So there might not be a deal now, but it's important to follow up. You know, so you know, if someone does a business, like we'll follow all those until it's sold. Even if they're like this, got a contract, we'll never mess with the contract. But I'm following them up until I hear that contract close. You know what I mean? Like, so I think just having that system to follow up, because deals do happen over time. Yeah. The trust builds over time. If you do touch base every now and then to see how they're tracking, like they'll remember you. So when they finally get realistic, maybe a deal comes in, maybe there's some catalyst to make them go, I'm ready to sell now. Like you want to make sure they're calling you, or you've got a call coming pretty damn soon around that time when it's happening, so that you end up getting that deal, and that's really important.
I've got a friend who his follow-up game is so strong that he's been in this game for a decade plus. He built his business on his BlackBerry and the calendar on his BlackBerry to the point that he buys them off of eBay because his system is just so ingrained. Because when his BlackBerry dies, but what does he have in there? He has on his schedule. Call this person next week. Call this person last year in 6 weeks. Call this person, you know. And it's so ingrained into his system of it that he's just like, it's what works for him. Any other thoughts? So that third one is finding deals on market. Have you ever bought anything on market?
I bought in Australia. I bought on market, just like so I've had.
So in case you guys are looking over in Australia.
So I actually haven't bought them here on market. I think it might come soon because the market's cool. The market's been so hot. It's hard. I think deals are on market. They exist. So.
But they're very competitive.
But also it's hard for me as a person that has a business that goes direct to seller. It's hard for me to find the deal in MLS that compares to the deals I'm getting. So I don't do a lot. I feel like they're going to come though. I think the market might be more realistic, some more creative deals. So I think they're there. It's just not really the space I play, just because that's my skills and capabilities. Yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts before you head out?
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Best way for people to get in touch with you?
My website, Home by Louisiana. You can find me there. You can connect me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Yeah.
All right, Steve.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good closing.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, so you guys are stuck with me. So let's finish talking direct to seller. My background's in nonprofit work. I didn't go to college. That's my background. My very first deal I bought as a short sale that was with an agent. So baptism by fire, a short sale was not a short period. Nothing short about it other than the price. And the reality here though is I remember finally I heard about the seller's story and the problem, and I was just like, which was the whole reason I got the discount. But I was like, man, I wish someone could have helped this guy before he got to this point, So what I started learning was that when people have life events that are unfortunate, a lot of times real estate can be involved. So these are those pain points we're talking about, like divorce. People die. People are inherit properties from people who die. People get behind financially. So behind on their mortgage. People get behind with other liens and judgments, and they don't pay Uncle Sam, they don't pay their property taxes, or they get behind of the maintenance, the deferred maintenance, all these things. All sorts of issues. So the reality here is when you're direct to seller, one of my mentors, he taught me this question and I don't care if it's a fallen down trailer, which I've bought those before as well, or if it's a nice home, which I've bought those as well. I call those pretty houses, right? The ones that don't need much work. I will say, what makes you want to sell such a nice house like this? I may not say the nice part, so I'm not trying to be sarcastic. That's not nice. But, I really care. 5% of appointments with sellers, and honestly, I vet them before I go on the appointment again. If there's not a problem for me to come solve, I'm not going to come, I don't care if your house is made of, whatever, and it's a nice house. I disappoint so many people who watch HGTV who know I'm a house buyer. I disappoint so many of them because I actually don't care about the sticks, the bricks, and the whole part of the house. I can't even tell you what color we painted on the wall, and whatnot. Because at the end of the day, 95% of my conversations with sellers are about the problem, the reason why they have an investor like me standing in front of them. So that's where when he talked about listening, when he talked about asking those questions, I want to become the muscles that I worked really hard on are the listening factors of, hey, tell me more about that. Wait, hold on. You just mentioned, you kind of breezed over this. You just mentioned you tried selling this for a few years now. Talk to me why you think it hasn't sold. We literally have a seller working with right now. It's been on the market for 400 plus days as for sale by owner. They've had 2 price drops, but it's like 20,000, so it's not prolific. And we picked up the phone. We said, hey, we heard this. They're like, we're not going $1 under what we have it for, and we're not doing anything creative. They literally led with that. I said, sounds like you've been talked to a lot. By investors. I said, and so I told them when it comes down, like literally, Steve and I were talking through that deal, and I said, don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do, because obviously the market is telling you that this isn't working. So what can you do? Because other than have the fortitude of whatever, you're gonna hold it forever. So honestly, I told a seller this morning. I said, if you don't change your thoughts on price, go change your will, because your kids will be then having this mess. That was my piece of advice leaving, and I didn't say it rudely. I said, with all due respect, I hope you have a will, because he was up in age. I said, I hope you have a will, and please, set your kids up to deal with this mess, in the right way and don't just leave them with it. And they have to figure it out. Because right now it's a mess for you, and it will continue to be a mess, right? So long story short, I mean, a lot of times as a creative real estate investor, I can figure out the issues. But the reality here is, so you've got to learn at finding, how do you find people with problems? An easy way is you talk to people. Tell them what you do. I don't say I buy houses. I'm not going to lie. My truck has the license plate that says house buyer. It's abbreviated because I don't have that many words, you know.
That's pretty low.
Yeah. So, but the reality is, and I actually have thought about giving that up and going after one that says problem solver instead. Because I talk more about myself as being a creative problem solver that comes with real estate than actually just buying houses. Because then what happens? People say, oh, my sister's selling her house. I'm like, okay, well then why, right? So again, I need the narrative to be, I'm here to help solve a problem. Because far too many times people say, oh, well, my house is for sale, we just dropped it 10 grand. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not your buyer if you're going after retail. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So how do you find people with problems? Talk. So what I've learned is tell stories. One of the things, if any of you guys find me on social media, I do a ton. Back in 2020, if you look at me on social media, I did not talk about myself. And I've been buying real estate. I've been in the industry for 8 years now. So it's like, I did not talk about it beforehand. But I learned that a closed mouth does not get fed. And I started realizing that, like, I didn't talk about it as much. Obviously, I've run lists for years, I was buying houses for years, but I wasn't as vocal. So I took both of my social media, my Instagram, my Facebook, I made them public, and I started posting on it frequently, talking about the projects and different things. The interesting, I literally walked a house yesterday with a homemade elevator, I kid you not. I'm like, there's no way in hell am I thinking that. I'm like, I might see the groceries, but maybe not, you know what I mean, like, or whatever, but like, they're, you know, so everything from the crazy things that I see to the real realities of the problems I solve. And by telling those stories, I mean, so many of my deals now come from relationships and people sending them to me because they're like, hey, can you help my brother-in-law? I follow your post. Can you know, this, that, and the other, right? That didn't come after me making 2 posts. That came after years of me talking about what I do. But here's the reality is you don't have to go kickstart this whole big, you know, social media campaign. You could just talk to the person that's at the, you know, grocery line or the gas station pump, or you could talk about it where, for example, let me say this. I'm the type of person where, again, my poor truck. It needs to be a business expense. How many times I've hit my brakes, I tap my brakes, because, like, for example, I have left my truck running in the middle of the street because I opened up the door, or I had the window down, and then I eventually opened the door and I was talking that I just did not pull over fully and I turned my truck off. But it was, all I saw was a dumpster out front of a house and like 4 adults in hazmat suits and like one of them leaning over, losing his lunch. I'm like, and it was at the stop sign, like it was a house at the stop. So I pull over and I open my door, look, I can smell the cat from the street, like the cat urine from the street. So I'm like, does that not sound like a problem?
Good one.
They had just inherited mom's house. And they were like, their only thing they knew was to pick that, you know, list with the realtor, and they're like, the realtor said we had a long way to go. Lucky before, you know? So the reality, Aaron was like, I know what I'm talking about. So the reality here is, I left my truck in the middle of the street, I was like, hey, this is what I do for a living. You can give this up now, and I will go pay for you to have lunch with me right now if you want to go talk about it. Literally, I love making that offer. I mean, you see they're my accountants. They see all my food expenses because I'll say, let's go have lunch and talk about it, right? And then we talk about it, and by the end of it, we're signing a contract on buying it, right? Because the reality, that's what I mean by talking to people, right? Or if I see the neighbor, I'm not necessarily going to take the neighbor out to lunch to talk about it, but I'm like, hey, what do you know? What's going on with this? Why has this been like, boarded up for 2 years or whatever? Or I always drive by it, what's going on, Or if I see like an estate sale, a garage sale, I'll pull up to it. First of all, I just like shop it at them. But the second part of it is I'm like, it's a garage for sale too. What about the rest of the house? Estate sales. If I can tell it's being run by the family, I'm like, are y'all moving? What y'all doing? Y'all selling the house too? Y'all renting here? You know, like I ask questions. So just get better at asking questions and just talking to people. If you're not good at that, maybe your spouse is, right? Like, so just different. I mean, I've bought properties from all crazy situations. But the reality is I have not been afraid to pull my truck over and like talk when I see something happening, right? I kid you not, there was a house that I would look at and I tried like sending letters to and different things, and I was so mad a few months ago because I drove by this house with my truck loaded down and a trailer pulled behind because I was moving and I had all the stuff in it and I had a caravan of people with me moving. But I passed by this house and they were putting a for sale sign on a boat in the front yard, and I was like, I'm gonna talk to them, and y'all leave, because this is the house that built my radar, and I'm like, man, I gotta go back and get that number. But literally, I'll call me like, I had no interest in the boat. Tell me about the boat. What type of boat is it? But eventually, I'm gonna say, have anything else for sale? What about the house? I mean, but the house is boarded up, so I'm like, so, but it's one of those things. I'm talking to sellers, but another big thing is learning how to use public records. Okay, I mean, literally, that's everything from the easy route is there's what's called list brokers. So there's a website called PropStream. If you go to Courtney10k.com, I think it's a 7 or a 14-day, no, it's a 7-day free trial with it. I really want to encourage you, unless you want to have a big marketing budget, don't get into all these like subscriptions. But PropStream, they have it's like a list brokerage that they're tied to. I think you can pull 5,000 leads of like data every month with like a $97 subscription. So, but what you can pull is like, landlords. So, and then you can send mail to them. Again, that data point, I don't care if you have, you're like, well, I can do it for 10 months at 50,000. I'm like, first of all, we don't have enough data for 50,000. You'd have to be Baton Rouge, New Orleans, the Northshore, But the reality here is understand that when you're dealing with sellers of pain point, that is a very small percentage of the population, okay, where they need to sell at a discount. But look for those pain points. If they have multiple pain points, even better. So PropStream is one of those options. Honestly, to be dead honest, I am more of a courthouse runner type of person where I learned how to use the courthouse. And that took, I started learning from people who do title abstracts and like, what does that look like? Or how do you find out when someone's facing foreclosure through the courthouse? And literally, we just pull it from the courthouse. So those things that took time to learn, okay? The problem with data brokers is there's a delay because they've got to get it somehow too, right? Yeah, those courthouses, the courthouse records. But even then, if you see a house that's been sitting up, try to just get in front of the owners. Like, do your best to get in front of them and say, hey, talk to me about what's going on. Every time I pass by this, I've just been curious. So those are just some options there. Look, you can cold call them. You can text them. You can send them a letter, send them a postcard. You can send them a pamphlet. You can send, you can put up. You gotta be careful about putting up those signs that say we buy houses because there's ordinances. I knew a guy who put up a few hundred on them. That was the first thing he did. And then he got a $250 fine because he didn't know. And then he was like, well, if I already got the deal, it would have been worth it, but I didn't. So then he had to pay for the signs and, so be careful with some of those things. Look, if you're flipping and you want to be direct to seller, here's one thing is I got a big banner made up that we would put on the dumpster that said, hey, we buy houses type language with our information. But I also had these, like those garage sale bandit signs, right? That said another house bought by Deep Roots Property Solutions. And I put our phone number. Know someone with a problem house, ? Call us. And I put my phone number. Because all the neighbors knew how problematic that house was.
They're like,
they're usually my biggest fans. They're also usually, and one of them I'm thinking of, I bought in Slidell. I bought it because when I bought the one around the corner, the neighbor said, you need to go check out that house over there. Like they tell me all the problematic ones, right? Neighbors are my favorite snitches. Intel. So the reality here is that you can do small things like that. Steve drives around with a magnet on his truck. that says, you know, Home Buyer Louisiana, and he has a web, he's really big on online stuff. I'm not gonna be the tech person to talk to you about that, other than social media. I'm big on social media stuff. But, so he can talk to you about like you can go look at his websites, you can do things like that where, you know, you do the SEO, the PPC, all that. I can't really speak to you on that part, but like, there's all these different ways you can market. The biggest thing I wanna tell you this is, you've gotta get in front of sellers, and you've gotta get in front of them, you know, if you want volume frequently. So, with that being said, you need to have a plan, whatever that looks like. You also need to evaluate your budget and your time availability and all of that, and build a realistic plan. But ultimately, when it comes to sellers, you don't want to wait. There's a house, so I just bought a new house in a new area, so I've been, you know, going my morning walks, and this is a house that every time I've driven by it, I'm like, I need to go do something. So I keep, in my truck, I keep a blue painter's tape, and I keep a legal pad in my truck. And I usually, very frequently, will leave a note on them and go put it on the door. Well, I had not had the painter's tape in my truck for some reason. Oh, I think the heat had melted it or something like that, whatever. Long story short, I was like, I haven't had that on me. And so the other day I said, you know, for weeks now I've been putting it off because I've been forgetting to put the painter's tape in my truck to go put this down the street by the house that I passed. So I said, you know what, forget it. I just wrote it and I went, and this was one that had like that front gated door. And so I just put it through. And I just put there, hey guys, my name's Courtney. I pass by this house every day. I see that it's been sitting for a while. Curious what your plans are and if you'd be open to an offer. Simple as that. Give me a call. Courtney Fricky, here's my cell phone number. Fold it over, put it on the door. I've bought numerous properties that way, right? But I did that because I had noticed that this house had been sitting, had finally had that blue realtor box on it. And I said, well, maybe I can at least get it before it goes on the market. I put that on 3 days ago, and yesterday I walked it with the realtor. Now, and it was a realtor who I happen to know, right? And long story short, I said, this don't need to sit on the market for a while because they were unrealistic on price. And I said, I said, look, I'm interested, but not at that price and not today. I think the market needs to speak to them for a little while. So, you see what I'm saying? Let's talk about working with on-market properties. I have bought on market. Like I said, I got in the industry in 2014. My very first purchase was an on-market deal, but it was a short sale. It was one where the bank had to be negotiated with in order to get it discounted. Those are options, but that takes a lot of time. Another one that's on the MLS is what's called Reo Properties. Okay, you can look at literally for the source, the where it'll say that is checked off as a bank-owned property. These are ones where they've gone through foreclosure, it went to the auction, and the bank was the one that successfully bought it, not a third-party investor. So it's been foreclosed on. So those, let me just say, the banks are very black and white with their numbers and negotiating. I've only ever bought one REO property, and let me tell you, that was because it was their worst REO property that they owned, because I bought it. It was a part of a package of ones because they couldn't sell it elsewise. And because of special skill sets, I said, yep, that's a complicated deal, that's a Courtney deal, so I'll take that, right? But other than that, they only did that as last resort because it wouldn't sell normally, right? So with those, keep in mind, they're generally going to be very tight on their negotiating, and it's not as easy. So keep that in mind. The other thing with stuff that's on the market, you either need to be quick with the stuff, like, so work with agents that, you know, they can send you like an automatic drip campaign of like, you know, if it has certain words or if it's in a certain area or certain, you know, status of a fixed rubber or whatever, where you can get that. You just need to be diligent to look at, you know, that list or look at MLS or look at Zillow daily and collaborate, because a lot of times it's speed. Right now the market's been cooling, so, you know, it is changing a little bit. But here's the other thing is I'm not a big fan that you go look at 50 houses on the MLS and say make 50 offers at 50% of whatever the list price is. Like, first of all, I know that would stress you out, Ariel.
Yes.
Right? That's a lot of paperwork. Yes. Anyone else here a real estate agent? Okay, okay. Oh, well, Bob too, but
yeah.
But okay. So Ariel's a top producing agent. The paperwork alone with doing 50 lowball offers isn't worth the time of the maybe one that may have a problem and they're just like, oh. So the reality, like just the off chance it works, right? That, I think that's such a, what's a nice way of saying it? I think that's such a short-sighted, so I believe in relationship capital. That is very destructive with the relationships that you have, because it's just transactional is the word I'm looking for.
You make the agent look bad too.
You make the agent look bad too. And the agent's like, I'm so sorry, girl, I know. Like, I know they're best, I know. But like the reality is so here's the thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's just gonna be wrong. I'm gonna go get my license, and that's what I'm gonna do. That might work in the one-off chances, right? Again, that's throwing something at the wall and seeing what sticks. The reality is, I'd rather you be more strategic with what's on market. Hey, has it been on the market right now in this market? Anything more than 60 days, I'd be looking at. You know what I mean? That's just sitting on the market. Just things like that where, is it a bank-owned property? Hey, go walk it and see if you can make the numbers work. Whatever, maybe it says a succession property in the tagline and you're like, hey, again, that speed to something going on the market. I believe that there's a funnel that exists. Think of an upside-down triangle. Most investors, they're looking for deals, because also retail buyers who are looking for deals, right? They all know to go on MLS. So that's the top, that's where the most competition is. The second layer of competition is the foreclosure auction, the public foreclosure auction. Okay? We'll talk about that here in a second as we start to wrap up. The third one is wholesalers, and then the bottom is direct to seller. Okay? That is the competition, formula in my mind, as far as, how many people are going after those things. On the MLS, so keep in mind here that competition part comes in. Look, since 2014, I truly have only bought a handful. So with agents, one of the main things is I buy pocket listings from them, where it's for some reason they can't pit on the MLS. Maybe there's tenants in there and they're afraid that it's, or maybe the conspiracy, my favorite, the conspiracy theorist that doesn't want the neighbor to know that they're selling or to buy it, or, what they're real private about their affairs or whatever that means. The agents are saying, Courtney, or the agent's like, Courtney, there's no way I can't even take photos. It's a hoarder house. Stuff's 10 foot tall in the house. I can take pictures of boxes and be done. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to showcase, right? Stuff like that. I've had houses that were like, agents love calling me about hoarder houses, but how would they know to call me if I didn't build those relationships, right? So you need to build those relationships. I've had them where, again, hey, they're like, hey, next week it's going to be going on the market, but they'll call me ahead of time. They say, start running your numbers. This is what's good, and I'm like, okay, right? So with that being said, guys, I know we talked about a lot. Let me say this, the public foreclosure auctions, I am literally getting them scheduled to come speak again. It's been years since I've had them speak here at Northshore REIA. I think 2018 was when they last spoke or something with us. Maybe I have to go back and look. They're going to be on the schedule within the next 2 to 3 months. I'm finalized having them sharing on how to buy from the public foreclosure auction in St. Tammany Parish. I can tell you, I'm looking at the recording, so I'm like, I can tell you they're one of the best around. To the point that the other parishes learn from them and model it. So with that being said, that's going to be coming up. I will tell you, if you buy in other parishes like I do, it's a major disappointment when you look at the other options. When you get spoiled on St. Tammany. So that's going to be coming up here. Any questions about anything that we talked about?
I got plenty. But I just need one. So with the wholesaling and you buy from them, since your time is limited to do your inspections, from your experience, what have you seen?
So there's no inspection.
Right, there is no inspection.
It's kind of like upfront inspection.
You just walk up to the property, look at it, I think it's gonna cost this much. But in your experience, what have you averaged? Like, say for instance, you looked at the property and it said it was gonna take 50, but it ended up spending 60. What was that number? You ever did the analysis on okay, I was always off by?
No, so I call those contingencies. It used to be a 5%. So let's just say, for easy numbers, if it was a $10,000 budget, 5% would be $500, right?
Yeah.
I would say, let me throw in an extra buffer of $500 for anything I missed or that comes, whatever. or we open up a wall and find something, and we, you know, or someone was being stupid and they broke something while in the middle of the rehab or whatever. It used to be 5. Things started getting more, you know, a little bit more, I was like, bigger rehabs, I was like 15. I'm at 25% contingency right now because with the craziness the last 2 years of like labor and materials going up, I could probably go down to 20 right now because it's not, you know, but like, cause it's been softening a little bit, but like lumber went back down, but like in the height of that, I was like, for sure, I'd rather have that buffer. So going back to that $10,000 buffer, a $10,000 with a 25% buffer, that's $2,500 added just for, you know, whoops or whatever. I can tell you this, most people, especially when they're for getting deals, they go beyond the budget of the budget that's allotted, but they also go beyond the timeline. So you want to build those in. With the wholesale deal, I know you said, you know, you talked about walking in, just going, hey, yep, this works. You can strategically go walk those properties, bring a contractor with you, or pay the inspector to say, hey, now as a wholesale, I'm gonna say this, I've had people come through with like home inspectors. The reality is that doesn't guarantee you. And so I've had like 2 or 3 people come through with a home inspector and they walk away with $400 bill that they did get the house on. But it's like, that was what they were used to and comfortable with. I would say this, this is why I often recommend people who, if they're really nervous about those factors, partner with someone with way more experience for your first handful of deals and lean on their knowledge of it, or just pay someone for their time to go walk in with you. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I will tell you this, most people miss it. People hate when I go on appointments because, like for example, my significant other is buying a property, you know, in Uptown in on the South Shore, and there was open houses on the weekend, and so we said, look, let's not aggravate the realtor to go do showings. Let's just go to some open houses. Well, I went to one, and some of you are gonna laugh because you heard me tell the story. There was an overgrown, what I call an overgrown frat boy, who was showing the property because he was like, and I'm not trying to be, you know, judgmental here, but so I'm sitting there walking through the property and going looking at it, where the overgrown frat boy was mansplaining, like how to buy a house. No. And they're like, this is where you know, you don't have to go look at the house. You're gonna have an inspection period and all that. And I'm like, so I'm asking, hey, so talk to me about the fire damage on the house. She's like, what? I said, and so I said, oh, we didn't know. So I'm like pointing out the houses are right on top of each other. And I'm like, this house next door has fire damage that they still haven't fixed. It's so close, there's no way that this house didn't catch fire, right? And he's like, well, we'd have to ask. Right? So it's one of those things. Just be observant. So be observant with those, but make some plans with them, because that's also a big thing too. How do you find great deals? You find those things before you buy. You find out that information before you buy. For example, the house I'm closing on today, I've been on a contract for a very long time, right? We've been through the court system. Well, the owner cut off the utilities. I said, but you're gonna have to return them back on right before we go to sell. So they recently just started putting them back on. Guess who had a water leak? And because I was like, that wasn't there 6 months ago. It was what was left in the pipes had found its way to that, and it was the ring from underneath it was the seal from underneath the toilet in the second-story bathroom. And so that got us a $2,500 deduction, right? Or I could have just been like, oh. Right? Like those things matter. I mean, those things matter, right? Also, the repair bill was $395 for that, and a few, like the shower nozzle would fall off. It wasn't even connected. So I was like, fix that too while you're at it, like in the bill. And $395. Why did I get a $2,500 deduction? Because it's also the headache of it, right? Or if there's anything else that we might find because of it, right? So you see how finding those things can help you. So it really is there. I've had many investors come to me way far up the creek, really without a paddle, because they didn't go and look at things like that, right? I remember, let me just say this, we were working a short sale on a house in Beauchene, and Beauchene is notorious for foundation issues. Ocean and Mandeville. The short sale wasn't going through, the bank wasn't cooperating. We went to the auction, the foreclosure auction, and I knew this house very intimately. I had it inspected, been working with the sellers. The bank wasn't negotiating with us. So you know what we just did? We said, you know what, we're gonna go offer on it at the auction. I knew we couldn't be a penny over $100,000 because we had fully seen the property. And at the auction, a lot of times you're buying sight unseen, This, I remember this flashy young guy bought it for $212,000. And I said, I feel sick for him.
Yes.
But I remember, so this was one that Paul and I were looking to buy together, and so I said, Paul, go see if you know someone we don't. And Paul went and talked to him, and I saw the guy's face get white. And so I walked up there, and I literally just gave him my card. I said, if you ever, need to talk down the line, just give me a call, And he immediately left, and I could tell he was like gonna lose his lunch. He had no idea, because he said, oh, we lived in the neighborhood, and we thought it'd be a good investment. I was like, with that being said, what makes good deals? Knowing your numbers. So if you go to CourtneyTenK.com, that is literally just a website with all my links, so I reference it a lot because it's better than me saying 10 different types of ways to find that information. But the top right link is our YouTube channel. And first of all, they have videos from Paul LaGrange sharing about the how to master your next walkthrough. He has some really good tips, like to the point that I keep a marble in my truck because of it, right? So if I ever am questioning the foundation on a house, I bring a marble on. I'm like, well, let me read the marble. And I come out and I'm like, and the marbles, the speed of the marble will also indicate.
Yes.
I'm like, if that thing's catching air, I'm like, we have a problem here, Houston. So that, little things like that. The other thing on there is, I think it was last month, we talked how do you analyze a deal. And that was recorded, just like we have this recorded, and this will get put on the YouTube channel. If you go watch that, I broke down different ways to analyze a deal. You can get a great deal through your numbers, okay? Any other questions from things we talked about? I mean, there's 100 other ways you can, there's other ways you can find deals, but honestly, guys, keep coming to these meetings, because, for example, I think I need to get back, there's one company, Civic Source, those are tax adjudicated properties, right? They stopped their trainings during COVID, and so I'm about to see if they're willing to come back in person to come do it. I mean, those are, there's different, you've got auction.com, you've got the foreclosure auctions, you've got a whole bunch of, other ways, deep diving short sales and things like that. There's other ways you can find deals. So education is also a great way you can find great deals.
Does Civic Source work through the parish auctions, or is it an online auction?
So Civic Source is technically an auction house.
Okay.
Think about it. It's and they just have specialized in the real estate. So a lot of what they do is they take over the tax liens and those tax lien sales, or the adjudicated properties, two different things, kind of similar. And so a lot of parishes have outsourced to them, hired them as a third-party vendor to oversee those. I will tell you this, Civic Source is getting better and better, but again, that comes with an education as well, which again, I've been trying to get them, they came I think in 2018, and I'm trying to get them back. I'm trying to go to some of those people who've been, it's been a while since I've had them speak.
Yeah.
And it was before we were really recording them and stuff, so just so that I can get them to come and break it down, just so you guys have more ways to find deals. Any other questions?
A real quick one. I've seen Propelio. What is?
So Propelio, it's a competitor to PropStream.
That's what I want.
Actually, Daniel Chad Moore, who came and spoke in 2020, he's actually been one of my favorite speakers. He was actually the speaker in March of 2020. And I remember taking him back to the airport the next morning or that night or whatever, and the world was just starting to change. So anyway, one of my favorite talks from the REIA ever on the YouTube channel, if you go look up Daniel Chad Moore, it's actually mislabeled because he was supposed to speak on how to buy an unlimited amount of free houses, and then he even talked about how to be a cyclical investor, and it's been by far one of our most reviewed ones. But anyway, long story short, he owns Propelio. So to be honest, Propelio, PropStream, they're just competitors.
That's really what I wanted to know.
That's just,
Because I've heard of a lot of these, just
they
didn't
have,
understand the differences.
they have different honestly, with your notary, you're a notary, your skill set, whatever that, you would probably enjoy the courthouse more than, like, the prop stream is more tech, like saving you time with tech and everything like that. So you see what I'm saying?
It's also national.
Yes.
It's more scalable. Like
Scalable, and if you don't need to scale and all the tech, like I'm not very techy, and I was scaling, so I was forced to go tech because I was scaling, but then when I scaled down, I was able to get rid of a lot of the tech.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Any other questions? Was this helpful?
it was.
Ariel, you were asking one of the questions? All right, the power of focus, or you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought? Sorry, one of them like
Wow.
I'll go with the power focus. Thank you.
Anyone feels like they can't afford the luxury of a negative? Anyone else? Okay. No, so this is one where this is I didn't read the subtitle before. It says a book for people with any life-threatening illness, including life. I didn't read it at first. I was like, wait, is this for someone who's sick? And then it said including life.
So I picked this one, y'all.
Anyone interested in reading this one? Yeah? No? Huh?
life-threatening illness, including life. I'll take that one.
There you go. I'm not gonna lie. You probably read it in my face whenever I said it, but that's when I read but nonetheless, you guys, let me just say this, keep coming around. We really are trying to tailor these meetings for navigating this changing market. I can tell you the types of deals, and I'm gonna end on this. I got in the industry since 2014, the market's been doing this, right? The market has been cooling, right? Maybe a little, but you know, right? I was forced in a rising market to learn, I guess, more strategic ways to find. So I learned how to go to the courthouse. I learned how to find, because it was just so, like, the deals were just not easy to find. If the market truly does change, deals will be easier to find, right? If, you know, they're like, right now, I'm actually starting to look on them less more. Previously, that was not a thing, not really a thing for me. So keep in mind that it does change with the market. There should not just be a one-size-fit-all across the board over the years. So with that being said, look, feel free to reach out if I can ever help. If you have a deal and you're saying, hey, Courtney, I was texting someone at 11 o'clock last night, which I'm not encouraging you to text me at 11 o'clock at night, but I'm like, they were like, hey, I have a motivated seller and I have no idea what to do next, right? And I was like, look, and we were looking at working the deal together, and it was in Mississippi, in Picayune and Pearl River County, and I texted my friend over there who I knew was up late because we were talking already, and I said, hey, what do you know about these houses? He said, I've walked them 4 times. Those sellers have been unrealistic for years. And I said, good to know. Like, so keep in mind that, like, being tied to people, like, there's so many times where, you know, I remember Justin, we worked a deal together, and I remember that seller, it was crazy, but he didn't accept an offer from me, and I was like, hey, Justin, I have a handful of, like, leads, do you want to try to work them? And then eventually, I was, like, so shocked at the price that Justin got it for, because I was like, what the heck, man? Time and circumstance changes. Look, time and circumstance changes everything, so keep that in mind when dealing with sellers and situations, right? So, look, thank you guys for coming out today.
Thank you.
Feel free. Look, we've got the, if you're looking for a title company or property management or even my cards over here, but thank you guys for coming. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and make sure you guys pay the piper. Your tab?